Hello, hello, it is Lynx here, and today I will be reading a one-shot with around 4,000 words titled, But I Know You'll Always Be There For Me by an Orphan Account on AO3. It's rated general audiences with some graphic depictions of violence. We love that, don't we? Yes, we do. Yeah. So, read this a few days ago. It was good, but just some warnings for this. It's gay. Happy Pride Month, guys. It's gay. We have Izawa and Yamada. Come on, guys. If you don't like gay, get out. This is a safe space. Leave if you don't like it. I don't care. And they adopt Shinzo and Izuku because yay! Yamada's deaf. We love that. Perfect headcanon. Quirkless Midoriya Izuku. And there is the tag suicide attempt. So please, if you can't handle that, respectfully leave. Can be safe, you guys. Don't listen to something if you know it's gonna hurt you. Okay? Anyways. Let's get into this. Summary. In a world where you can only see color when you make contact with your soulmate, Izuku contemplates his life and how it was ultimately changed by one lonely night on a rooftop. Soulmate AU, where everything is monochrome until your soulmate or soulmates physically touch you. This applies to platonic and romantic soulmates in groups that include more than 2 people. Better explanation and notes. Yes, guys, that means we're reading the notes today! Yay! Alright, these notes. Pretty much in this AU, physical contact from your platonic or romantic soulmate can make the colors appear. In most cases, people who have more than one soulmate typically only needed to be touched by one of them in order to see color. If touched by more than one, then they typically just get a little sensation where they touched at that tips them off. In rare cases, all soulmates must make contact with the individual. In this case, it can be a gradual increase of color or a sudden wave of it. Most people can tell from the moment of contact what kind of soulmate one is to another. For romantic soulmates, there is that pull of attraction there. For platonic ones, it's more of a familial kind of love. In the case of Izawa and Izuku, Izawa felt a parental pull to the boy. Trigger warnings, mentions of suicide attempts, talk about suicide and suicide attempts. Yamazawa Izuku smiled softly as he watered the small plant that sat in his bedroom on the window ledge. The bright green leaves were as vivid as always, complementing the red terracotta pot the plant resided in. It was slowly approaching the 3rd anniversary of being welcomed into their family. It was also coming to the date when he had first seen all the beautiful colors. Setting the dark purple watering can down on the window ledge, he looked out of the apartment into the city below. The warm oranges and yellows of the rising sun peeked just over the silhouettes of the buildings, and he was so sure his brother was happy about the fact that Izuku took the room with the window that was faced east. Glancing back at the rooftops, he was drawn to the memories that he associated them with. He was so tired. Midoriya Izuku was so tired of being beaten and bruised by the boys he once called friends. He knew why they did it. He wasn't as stupid as he liked to make them think he was. He was quirkless. He was an easy target that couldn't fight back. At some point, he gave up and just let it happen. He was probably around 6 when he made the realization that it was easier to let them win. It didn't last too long if he didn't fight. They'd get bored quickly. As he grew up, it wasn't only the quirklessness that got him bullied. It was in fact that he had yet to discover his soulmate or soulmates, that he still saw the world in monochrome color. Kachan had even used this fact that his mother, Inko, wasn't even one of his soulmates, adding to the jokes about how unwanted the boy truly was. Izuku thinks he regretted those jokes when his mother was killed in a villain attack. From then on, the insults got worse. The attacks became more violent as they got older. At 11 years old, Midoriya Izuku was ready to take his own life. That was how he found himself standing on the school's rooftop and looking down at the world of gray below him. It wasn't like he could get down anyways. He knew they had locked the door on him when he got up there, and there was really no point in yelling for help. It was getting late now. Most people would probably ignore him anyways. He set the book bag down next to the railing, glancing down at the 3-story building to the concrete ground below. He wasn't fully aware of himself climbing over the railing and holding on. It took him minutes of just standing there as he gathered the courage to let himself go and allow himself to fall. He considered it funny that the moment he decided to let go, fabric wrapped around him and he was pulled back over the railing. A little harshly, might he add. He landed on the rooftop and looked up, his eyes wide as he saw the person that had stopped his attempt. He was sure he looked stupid as he looked up at the man who seemed to actually care. It actually took him a few moments to recognize the underground hero. He sputtered out a few apologies, quickly scooching himself back a few feet. You're Eraserhead. The hero tilted his head a bit to the side. Wow, kid, good eye. I'm a bit surprised you know that. I'm pretty underground. Izuku thought back to the notebook in the backpack that sat a few feet away, the one that held his analysis notes. But that's a conversation that can wait until later. Are you alright, kid? He crouched down to his level, pulling off his goggles. His hair and eyes were a dark shade, nearly black. Izuku wondered what color they really were. Izuku nodded a bit, forcing himself to make eye contact. I'm alright, Eraserhead, sir. The pro rolled his eyes as he listened to the kid. I meant physically. God knows you're not okay mentally or emotionally. You don't have anything that needs taken care of. The kid shook his head, unwrapping his arms around himself. You don't have to stay, and you really don't need to pretend like you actually care. I'm quirkless, sir. The hero stood up. Kid, that doesn't matter. You really aren't in a good state of mind right now. How about I get you home? I'd feel better knowing you were safe with people who care about you. Izuku looked up, knowing very well that he had no one. Sir, in all honesty, nobody would have cared if I had jumped. My mom is gone and my dad just disappeared. I've got no friends and I'm more trouble than I'm worth. Eraserhead offered his hand to the kid, who took it and allowed himself to be helped up. He dusted himself off, his eyes catching sight of his bright red shoes. His eyes widened and he looked up quickly at the hero, noticing the bright yellow color of the goggles that he wore. Izuku quickly looked back at the backpack on the ground to find it was a similar shade of yellow. He glanced back at the pro. Your eyes and hair are actually black. Izuku bit his lip as he processed this information. Eraserhead was his soulmate. He knew it was most likely just a platonic soulmate connection, considering he was 11 and the pro was probably in his late 20s or early 30s. Eraserhead looked down at the hand he used to help Izuku up. Kid, are you alright? I know that discovering a soulmate can be a lot to process. Shoto was battling his emotions internally. Part of him was happy to have discovered the boy was his platonic soulmate, just like his son. The other part of him was angry for seeing how this boy was treated by society. If you need anything, kid. Those words seemed to be the boy's undoing. The pro was quickly tackled by him, green hair flooding his vision as the boy hugged him, sobbing softly into his chest. He wasn't one for much physical contact, but he willingly wrapped his arms around the kid and did his best to comfort him. Izuku smiled softly at the memory. The two had spent hours on that roof, talking things over. The boy picked up the small watering can and turned it back to where he had grabbed it and made his way down the hallway to the kitchen. It was only 5:30. Typically, his papa would wake up in about 30 minutes to start to make breakfast, but he was feeling nice today and decided to make breakfast for his family. Quiet footsteps followed behind him, and a glance back would reveal the small tabby cat that his dad had named Cup. The boy stopped and crouched down to give the cat her morning pets. Well, hello, Cup. Did you sleep all right? He got a purr in response. He stood up, smiling before going on to the kitchen. The kitchen was his papa's space. Dad was banned from ever cooking in it after an incident in high school. Pop allowed him to help cook, though. The two of them usually worked together to make meals for the family. He grabbed the eggs, milk, and a few spices from the cupboard before getting the bread. He was branching out more culinary-wise and had started making more Western-themed dishes. This morning he was attempting French toast with eggs. As he started the egg mixture, he let himself get lost in his thoughts. He was so nervous. Midoriya Izuku was so nervous as Eraserhead, Aizawa Shota led him down the hallway to his apartment. The boy was still processing the fact that his soulmate was Eraserhead, who was also soulmates with Present Mike. They also had an adopted son, who Izuku wouldn't get to meet until the morning. Aizawa had opened up the apartment door slowly. Humming could be heard from within the apartment. The older man gestured for him to go in, which he hesitantly did. He followed in after and closed the door behind the two of them, locking it for the night. The humming stopped when he heard the front door. Sho, is that you? Izuku looked in the direction of the voice. That must have been Aizawa's husband. Yeah, Zashi, it's me. He walked toward the kitchen, letting Izuku follow. The boy didn't know what he was expecting, but it certainly was not a tall, blonde man. The man turned to face what he thought was just his husband, but he froze. His eyes looked the small boy up and down, but he quickly composed himself, giving a smile. Sho, who's this little listener? Aizawa looked at the kid. Wait, you didn't kidnap a kid, did you, Shota? No, I didn't. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. How about we go and sit down in the living room? We have a few things that we need to discuss. The blonde complied, heading there first, and Aizawa led Izuku. He got the boy situated on the couch and made sure he was comfortable. So, there are a lot of things we need to talk about. First off, I think introductions are in order. Izuku, this is Yamada Hisashi. He's my husband and soulmate. He's also the pro-hero President Mike. The boy's eyes lit up at the information. Both men seemed to notice that spark of joy in those green eyes. The blonde adored the boy's emerald green eyes. The thought that they looked so similar to his own that the two could truly be mistaken for father and son crossed his mind, but he quickly shut the thought down. He didn't want to get his hopes up too soon. Zashi, this is Midoriya Izuku. Turns out he and I are also soulmates. Yamada smiled at the boy. It's very nice to meet you, Midoriya-kun. It's very nice to meet you too, President Mike, sir. Oh, none of that now. It makes me sound like an old man. Just call me Yamada, especially since I'm off duty. The boy bit his lip nervously, and Yamada instinctively put a hand on his shoulder to comfort him. Izuku's eyes widened at the sensation in his shoulder. Hisashi had put a bit of a similar reaction, glancing from where his hand rested on the boy's shoulder to his husband. His small smile grew and was laced with fondness and adoration. Oh, little listener, can I give you a hug? It took a moment, but he nodded, and pretty soon the blonde had the boy wrapped up in his arms, running his hand through soft green curls. Looking up at his husband, the two seemed to share the same thought. They would do anything for this sweet boy. It didn't take long until breakfast was ready. He had started the coffee already, setting up 2 mugs for his dad and brother. His papa typically had tea for breakfast, so he had the electric kettle on, heating up water for the both of them. Izuku grabbed the bright purple plates down from the cupboard, setting them down on the counter for his family to grab when they finally woke up. His auntie Namuri had gotten them as a wedding gift for his parents. He was partially surprised that his dad yet to throw out the plates in the matching bowls. His papa was the first one in the kitchen, just as the water finished heating. The tall man gave his son a hug, and his hair was comparable to a bird's nest. Morning, kiddo. His voice was a little louder than it typically would be, and one glance at his ear showed that the tall man had indeed not yet put his hearing aids in. Izuku pulled back and signed good morning, also informing his papa about breakfast. The man grinned and ruffled his hair. Thanks, Izu. He went over and got himself a plate of food, setting it down on the counter before turning to the kettle. He prepared 2 mugs and poured in the water to let them steep. Izuku also got himself a plate, taking a seat next to his papa. It didn't take long for his dad to join them. He had his papa's hearing aid case in his hands, and he set them down on the counter in front of his husband. Morning, you forgot these. He gave his husband a kiss and sent a nod of acknowledgement to his son. He'd typically give him a hug, but he really needed to get his cup of coffee. He grabbed the black coffee mug and poured himself a cup of coffee, taking a few sips before setting the mug down. He looked at his family. Where's Toshi at? Oh, he's still in bed. I managed to finally get him asleep last night. And Insomnia was really kicking his butt this week. Papa had gotten a new magnolia and chamomile tea while he was at the store, and that seemed to help him a lot. He probably went to bed about 2. And you stayed up with him? You do realize that you need sleep too, problem child. I'm fine, Dad. I actually have a decent sleep schedule. Besides, I passed out as soon as I got in bed and woke up to my alarm just fine. Still, you can come get one of us. You're our kids, and we should be the ones taking care of you. So next time, please just let us take care of it so you don't ruin your sleep schedule. I'm always willing to stay up with Toshi. But you and Toshi don't have the same kind of conversations that he and I do. As siblings with a 2-week age difference, he and I understand each other a lot more than you two do. And we get to talk about the weird stuff that teenagers talk about. His papa chuckled, having put in his hearing aids in near the beginning of the conversation, almost as if he knew they were talking about him. The purple boy ventured into the kitchen. The bags under his eyes hadn't improved much, but they were better than the night before. He yawned and took a seat next to his brother. The younger boy chuckled. Morning, Toshi. How are those amazing 6 hours of sleep? Better than nothing, Izu. Can you get me a cup of coffee, please? You're the only one that can make it the way I like. Said boy nodded, getting up and grabbing his plate to take to the sink. You literally just drink straight black coffee, kid. Dad, I'm gonna say this as nicely as possible. Shush. He yawned once more. Izuku just pours it with more love. That doesn't make any sense. Izuku grabbed the pot of coffee, smiling as he started pouring it. Things have definitely changed since he first met his family. He was so confused. Midoriya Izuku was so confused as he slowly opened his eyes. The ceiling was not the one that was his in his room at the orphanage. The room was also darker than it typically would be, seeing as the orphanage workers failed to provide most rooms with proper curtains to block out the bright sunlight. Looking around the room, his eyes caught sight of his yellow backpack hung on the back of a desk chair. Wait, yellow backpack? The memories of the prior night came quickly to, and his eyes widened. He had found 2 platonic soulmates. They were pro-heroes. He could see colors. They said they had wanted to talk to him more today. They asked if he'd prefer to stay the night since it had gotten so late, and he said yes, knowing very well that those at the orphanage wouldn't even realize he didn't come back after school. He sat up, getting a better look at the room around him and all the colors. He barely got a chance the night prior to process everything. His life was changed so suddenly and out of nowhere. Now he saw color. Now he had people who cared about him. He looked down at the pajamas he was wearing. Aizawa and Yamada said they were their son's old pajamas that he had grown out of. They were dark blue and extremely soft. He smiled as his hand ran over the fabric. He pushed back the blankets and stood off the bed, his feet landing on the cold hardwood floor. His school uniform wasn't sitting on the desk where he had left it. He glanced around the room but was unable to locate the clothes to change. Biting his lip, he looked to the door. He should probably hurry and get back to the orphanage so he could get ready for school. Speaking of school, he hoped he wouldn't be too late. Actually, he didn't even know what time it was. There was thankfully a clock on the desk, but he practically did a double take when he saw the time. It was 2 p.m. He was so late for school. It was practically almost over with. He hurriedly grabbed his backpack and rushed out of his room. He had to get going. He didn't really have time to stick around and talk. What he was not expecting was a purple-haired boy that looked around his age, sitting on the couch. The two made eye contact and looked shocked to see him. "You're the kid that Dad brought home." It was blunt and straight to the point. I am. You must be his son?" He got a nod from the boy. He would have loved to stay and talk some more, but he remembered he was in a bit of a hurry. "Shoot, I can't stay long. I have to go to school." He was just slipping on his red sneakers when the boy got up. "You don't have to go. Dad called your school, told them you wouldn't be there. He wanted you to rest for a little while." Izuku stopped putting his shoes on to look at the boy. "You're in pajamas anyway. I doubt you want to go to school like that. Papa washed your uniform, by the way. It's drying right now. I'll go grab you a change of clothes, actually." Izuku could only watch as the boy headed into a room whose door had been shut last night. He quickly returned, folded clothes in hand. Izuku stood up, letting his shoes and backpack sit on the ground. As he took the offered clothes, his hand grazed the other's just the slightest bit. The tingling sensation from when Yamada-san had put his hand on his shoulder the night before was back. Both boys looked down at their hands before looking back at each other. "Well, it's been a while since I felt that. The bathroom is the second door on the left. When you're done, we can get something to eat and we can talk." Izuku nodded, quickly making his way to the bathroom to change. 10 minutes later, he sat at the kitchen counter with the purple-haired boy. What he had gathered so far was his name was Yamazawa Hitoshi. He was 2 weeks older than Izuku himself, and Aizawa and Yamada had adopted him 3 years ago, and his quirk was called brainwashing. Izuku's interest in his quirk seemed to surprise the poor boy. "Wait, you aren't scared over the fact that I have a quirk that can control you if I activate it? Most people are." Izuku looked down at his plate of food before looking up at Hitoshi. "Well, I suppose I'm not most people, now am I? Most people have a quirk. Most people aren't in the position I'm in." The look on his face seemed almost sad. "Why are you here anyway? Don't you have school?" "Dad didn't just call you in, he called me in too. He and Papa had to go to work, and well, they worry about leaving you alone right now. I don't know much. Dad didn't tell me, but he gave me a pretty simple summary." He rubbed the back of his head as he tried his best to explain. "So, you're pretty much supposed to be my babysitter since your parents are worried I'll do something to myself?" Hitoshi froze up. "I didn't mean it like that." "Sorry, I know you didn't. You're all just worried. I mean, Aizawa-san did find me on a roof. I'm not gonna try again if that makes you feel better. I failed once. It'd be a shame to go for a second attempt." The room was silent after that. The two barely glanced at each other, but Izuku now felt horrible for how he spoke to Hitoshi. Mitsuki had always said that he was a nice and sweet boy. He felt terrible that he really wasn't the way she saw him. "So, when are Aizawa-san and Yamada-san coming back?" "They'll be back in a few hours. They have to go grab some documents after they finish up at work, but then they should be home. You don't have to stick around if you don't want to, but they prefer it. They want to talk with you about the whole soulmate thing." Izuku finished up his meal, and the two boys found themselves sitting on the couch in the living room. The younger of the two was sitting with a black cat in his lap. "His name is Spork. Dad found him chewing on a spork, so that kind of just became his name. He's also the reason we can't have sporks in the house. He will locate them and attack him. Cup is a tabby cat, but she's probably napping right now. She seems to have a set schedule that she likes to stick to. Pretty needy for a cat, if you ask me, but I guess that's why we call her the queen of the house." Izuku smiled as he ran her hand through the soft fur. Surprisingly, the two got along well. The conversation quickly diverged onto the topic of quirks, Izuku impressing the other with his analysis abilities. Before the two knew it, The door to the apartment was opening, and 2 pro-heroes were coming in. A manila envelope held safely in Aizawa's arms and a cardboard box in Yamada's. Izuku bit his lip as he glanced at the clock on the wall. I should probably get going. I would hate for the orphanage director to worry about me being gone for so long. I'll just grab my uniform and get out of your hair. He stood up, ready to head to the laundry room that he had seen earlier, but was stopped by the dark-haired man. There's no need for you to do that, Midoriya. In fact, he held up the envelope. Here are the temporary fostering papers. As pros, we have an emergency fostering license. We may have slipped the orphanage a little lie saying that we needed to take you in after a villain incident, but they believed it. We got all of your things. You won't have to ever go back there again. Zashi and I are here for you. We want you to trust us, especially considering the fact that some magical being looked at us and decided that we would be a happy family together. Now, it's only a 6-month foster case, but by the end of it, there will be a chance for us to adopt you if you'd like. You and you alone get to make that choice. His lip trembled, and he barely felt the first few tears that slid down his cheeks. In a moment, 2 pairs of arms hugged him, and a third joined hesitantly. He was finally home. He carefully handed the warm cup to his half-awake brother. There you go, Toshi. The boy quickly brought the drink up to his lips, muttering a thank you before he took a sip. Izuku chuckled and started down the hallway. I'm gonna go feed the cats and get changed. Toshi and I have some plans with the others today, so we were just gonna head out a little before noon. As he walked past the pictures, he watched as the frames got more and more filled. At first, it was just his dad's, but then Hitoshi joined in, alongside the cats. A few frames down was when he started to appear in them. Then a few more with their Auntie Marie and Uncle Tensei. He smiled as he stopped at one of the ones next to his bedroom door. It was a group photo that had been taken a few weeks after Izuku had officially been adopted. The sight of all the people he cared about being together in a moment captured forever made his body tingle with joy. He was home, and that was all that mattered. Alright, so that was the end of the one-shot, but I Know You'll Always Be There For Me by an orphan account on AO3. It was so sweet and so cute, and for those of I know that this is probably gonna get so many views so quick because everyone likes dadzawa. Everyone likes it. Yeah. Anyways, remember to eat, sleep, drink your water, and take your meds. And when you sleep, go to bed in a reasonable time. And you guys cannot clown on me because it is just after 1 p.m. It's a Saturday. I slept last night. Yeah, I slept last night. I went to bed before 11 p.m. even. So wonderful. Anyways, remember kids, be do and creme gay.